In this video, we're going to show you how to install the radiator on your Volvo S60 located behind the bumper. Before starting this job, you want to go ahead and have the AC system professionally evacuated. With the hood open, go ahead and locate the coolant reservoir on the passenger side of the engine bay. We're going to go ahead and open this up, take that cap off, and just set it aside. With the vehicle raised and supported, you want to go ahead and remove this lower shield right here. If you come up along the side underneath the bumper, there's a 10mm bolt right up top here. We're going to use our 10mm socket, and we're going to use our ratchet to loosen and remove this. Once you remove this bolt, go ahead and repeat for the other side. Now that we have the two bolts out, we need to release the two clips securing the front of this here. So you're going to go where the fog light is and in between and follow it up. I'm using a long screwdriver. And right up top here, there's a little clip that inserts. So we're going to push in on this little tab and pull that out. Repeat for the other side. I'll go ahead and slide this down and out and set it aside. Now on the driver's side lower portion, we're going to locate our petcock right here, our drain port. We're going to use a 13mm socket and a ratchet. Now we do have a catch can underneath to catch the coolant. When we're doing this here, make sure you're wearing safety glasses. And at this point here, we're going to let our coolant drain out. The other option you have is to go ahead and undo your lower radiator hose here. However, this can create much more of a mess. A little bit of patience here, do this here, and just wait for that to drain out. Once it's done draining, go ahead and snug that back up. You can just snug it by hand. And go ahead and give it a quick wipe down. Let's go on over here to the lower radiator hose. Using a number 7 socket, or you can use a stubby flathead screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this lower radiator hose clamp. Loosen that, slide that back. Make sure your drain bucket is underneath. Drain out the rest here. I'm holding some slight pressure on this here, just kicking at the bottom of the hose. I'm going to go ahead and take a rag and stuff it inside the radiator here, because this is going to continue to dribble for a little bit, but I want to roll this can away, the collection bucket, and kind of stuff that in there. Up top here, I want to go ahead and disconnect the air intake tube. So we're going to go ahead and take this and pull it towards the engine. Just going to wiggle that, disconnect it like so. Now we want to pull this out of the air filter box, set that aside. Now the wiring harness that connects to your cooling fan assembly, it connects right over here on the passenger side of the fan assembly, and you follow it back. Now there's probably going to be some plastic push pin retainers here. Then you can use a trim tool to pop this harness free. Ours is held in place using a wire tie. So we're simply going to remove this one and I'm going to follow it back, and there should be another retainer back here. Once again, ours is held in place by a wire tie. We're going to remove that. Now back at the connection, we want to go ahead and disconnect this. Now the electrical connector is held on by these two little clips here. Normally you can just reach out, pinch the two tabs and pull that connector up and off. But it seems like our tabs are not releasing. And the other thing is that our dipstick here is a little bit in the way. It makes it tough to get your hand in there. So feel free to go ahead and grab that. We're just going to go ahead and pull that out for now. Wipe that so it doesn't make a mess. Just set that aside. This is going to open up all kinds of room to get your hand in there. Try it again. Still doesn't want to work. Use a pocket screwdriver. You can get on the one side and then get to the other side. Hopefully release these tabs enough to get that connector off. it is. With the harness disconnected, if you did remove that dipstick, go ahead and reinstall it right now. We have our air intake tube running down and it transitions into a rubber hose. That hose connects down below to the intercooler. We're going to go ahead and use our 7mm shallow socket on a 1/4" stubby ratchet. Pull that dipstick out just a little bit and bend it over. That'll allow you to get your hand in there. You want to go ahead and loosen this hose clamp. All right, clamp is loose. We did break it free. It didn't separate, but we did break it free, so it's not stuck to it anymore. Go ahead and push in your dipstick. Now on the tube itself, on our particular model, it has a T25 Torx bit screw here, and there's one just on the other side over here. I don't believe that's factory on this, but whatever you have for hardware there, you want to go ahead and loosen and remove these. Someone may have replaced the original hardware at one point here. Now we're going to follow this tube up over the engine and into the back, and we're going to separate it from that hose connection in the back. Following the hose around the back, there's a hose clamp right here. We're going to use our 7mm socket and our stubby ratchet. Then once we have this loose, we're going to go ahead and remove the entire hose unit. Pull that out. Again, pull this up and out. Now don't forget the hose clamp down below. And go ahead and set this aside. On the top of your cooling fan assembly, this is going to be an 8mm bolt right here, right above the radiator hose. Then there's going to be one on the driver's side in the same location. Loosen and remove this. Once you get this one out, repeat for the other side. You can see once a bolt came out, that fan is now moving. We have the tube right here for the expansion tank. Pop that up and out. Now we should be able to lift this up. Now what we're lifting up is on the lower sides, on the driver and passenger side. There are little arms, little tabs down there. I wouldn't call them arms, but little tabs down there that lock into the radiator assembly. We'll show you that once we pull this out. Now as you're working this up, just watch for the other hoses and electrical connections that are still connected to other places. Lift up the driver's side and swing this up and out. Now right here are the tabs that interlock further down on the front of the radiator. So there's one here on the passenger side, one on the driver's side. Go ahead and remove this and set it aside. On the passenger side of the radiator, just below the upper radiator hose, you're going to locate another 8mm bolt down here. We use our deep 8mm socket and our stubby ratchet, 1/4". You can use a regular size 1/4" ratchet if you want. And to loosen and remove that bolt. It's a pretty long bolt. And remove that. Up on the radiator support here, there's going to be an 8mm bolt, almost right in line with the upper radiator hose. There's one here, there's one on the driver's side. Loosen and remove both of these. Go ahead and pinch these green tabs here inward and then pull out on the line. This is our oil cooler line. Once we get this one out, we're going to go ahead and do the same for the bottom. Now there's going to be rubber O-ring seals holding that in place. Now you have one down below. Let's go ahead and get that one next. And we do have a catch can underneath to catch any of that fluid coming out. Next thing we want to do is we're going to use a securing strap to run from the radiator support here over the radiator, and we're going to secure it underneath. We're going to loosen and remove the 2 bolts on the bottom side to separate the radiator from the support brackets. Then we need to come back up top and tilt this inward, bring the radiator inward to loosen the clamp on our radiator hose, because we can't get a tool in there to do that now. On the bottom passenger side, we have an 8mm bolt that goes through the radiator, the intercooler, and over to the AC unit. We're going to use our 8mm to loosen this. We'll switch over to our little ratchet here. Let's go and repeat for the other side. Now on the side of our radiator, we have a 10mm bolt going up vertical, and then there's one on the driver's side. I'm going to remove this here and repeat for the other side. Now don't forget, we have our securing strap holding everything up here. When we remove the bolt on the driver's side, this whole unit will drop down a little bit. With the radiator unbolted, you can go ahead and grab that hose and kind of manipulate that over to get your ratchet on there using your 7mm socket. And once you get that loose, I'm going to remove that radiator hose. Pop that off. Now before we go to drop the radiator out, we have our hose here that goes to our expansion tank. Now there's a clamp on here that's a one-time use. I'm going to go ahead and pop that off. There it is. On the driver's side here, we have one of the intercooler charge pipes, and we're going to use our 7mm to go ahead and loosen this clamp here. In order to do so, we need to go ahead and manipulate this unit up and out of the way, pushing it towards the engine. Okay, now that we have that separated, let's go underneath. Now over here on the driver's side, we have an AC line. We want to go ahead and disconnect. We're going to use our 10mm socket and our stubby ratchet to get on up there. Now you might hear a little bit of hissing coming from the AC system as we disconnect this line here, just a tiny bit. That's totally normal. Gotta remove that bolt. Now this line goes into our plastic retainer right here. Pop that line out like so. That's gonna allow us to flex this out of the way. Now the electrical connector here, just above the charge tube, there's a little tab. Normally if you press right here, it's gonna release the lock tab, but ours isn't releasing. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and use a little pocket screwdriver here to get up in there to assist us in releasing that. There it is. There, here we go, we have it off. Now at this point here, everything's ready to come out. We're gonna go ahead and remove our securing strap. Also wanna take caution that our AC condenser is still kind of floating. It's only held in by one hard line over here, an electrical connector. So we're gonna use this jack here to hold that in place while we remove the radiator and the intercooler together. And then we'll set it down. Now let's go ahead and separate our radiator, and we're going to stand this up. Now on the top of the radiator, you want to go ahead and remove this here. We're going to use an 8mm socket to loosen and remove the bolt securing this. And you swap this over to the new radiator. You want to repeat this process for the other side. On the new radiator, you're just going to line this up on the top, feed that bolt through. Go ahead and get that started. And then you want to go ahead and snug that down. Snug it down gently. Repeat for the other side. Now on our mounts right here, we have to swap over the rubber bushings here with the sleeve. And this is held in place by two locking tabs. There's one here and there's one on the other side. It's identical. And I'm going to use 2 pocket screwdrivers, flathead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it in here and you're going to watch the screwdriver come out. Right on the other side here. That's going to keep that lock tab bent out, and do the same over here. Then we can grab this bushing and wiggle this out. And take this and swap it right into the new unit. When you install this here, you want to make sure that the raised rubber part is facing outward. Notice the other side is recessed. Line that up and push it in. You can hear it lock into place. Repeat for the other side. Now on the bottom of our intercooler here, this is plastic shield and it may pop off. It's not that big of a deal. There's just these little plastic trees that go in to the bottom here and they pop into the bottom right here. So if they happen to pop out, I'm just going to install them later on. We're going to leave ours out for now until we're ready to get everything up and in, and then we'll install it later on. Let's go ahead and position our radiator here. All right, let's go ahead and grab that extra set of hands to go ahead and lift this up and put it into place. We're going to raise our unit up into place. Just clearing the intercooler tubes. Electrical connections, slide this up and in. And then once we kind of get this up in our general area, what we're going to do is grab our securing strap, use this to re-secure. Let's go ahead and start on the driver's side, installing that AC line. Install that AC line, line that up. I'm going to feed that bolt in through the top. And we're going to start to thread that in. I'm going to thread that in as far as I can by hand. All right, once that bottoms out, just snug it down a little bit. There it is. Now that we have the bolt started up top, we're going to go ahead and install our little retainer here that goes in to the tab right here to hold our line. Yours may have popped out like ours did. Now what we want to do is line up the 3 components. Make sure you have your little clip on this here on the AC condenser, because we're going to put our bolt through. Feed this through. And then it has to go through the AC condenser to secure. Now we're not going to tighten this yet. I want to go ahead and install the bolt on the passenger side, same location. Okay, now we're not going to tighten this down yet. We have our 2 lower bolts in. Let's continue. On the passenger side, just in front of the radiator, there's a wiring harness that runs over to the AC condenser. Now as you're feeding this up, this wire harness needs to go up above this mount for the radiator, but there's a little loop, a plastic eyelet on the other side. You're gonna have to do it by feel. You're gonna push that harness over and it's gonna fit into the loop. Now it has to go in there, otherwise it's gonna get pinched and you're not gonna be able to go ahead and raise this up into position. Once you're done with that, let's continue. Now on the driver's side, we're gonna push up on all three components. Grab your long bolt. Just gonna get that started a few threads. Do not tighten it. Now when doing this here, you will need to make sure that your intercooler pipe is out of the way and the electrical connector for the charge tube there is out of the way. On the passenger side, go ahead and raise this up. Get that bolt started. Same as the driver's side, just gonna run it in a few threads. Pretty much gonna hold it in place there, but it will drop down and that's totally okay. Just want it to support it. Now at this point here, we can remove our securing strap. Remove the securing strap. Now from up top, we're gonna go ahead and install our intercooler pipe right here. Let's go ahead and slide that into position. When doing this here, I wanna make sure that we can get our hose clamp in a position that we can access that. And we're going to snug down our charge tube here. Make sure it's good and tight. Do not want a leak from there. Install the electrical connector. Push it on, you're going to feel it and hear it lock into position. On the passenger side, let's go ahead and get our other mounting bolt in here. Feed that through, get that started. I'm going to go ahead and snug this down. Once it bottoms out, give it a little bit more. You want it snug. I'm going to go ahead and repeat for the driver's side. Now I want to install our two bolts holding the radiator and assembly up to the support. So I'm going to grab the radiator from underneath, lift it up, and the bracket lines right up. Now I'm just going to get this started. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now from below, we're going to go ahead and tighten up our vertical bolts. This is going to raise the radiator and assembly up into position. We can't tighten the screws up top because it's just those thin aluminum brackets there or steel brackets, and it's not going to be strong enough to pull this up. All right, let's go ahead and do the other side. Snug down our horizontal lower bolts. All right, once those bottom out, just snug them gently. Do the same for the other side. All right, let's tighten down the upper radiator bolts here. Once that bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Just want to make it snug. Do the same on the other side. I'm going to install our upper line here. Now we put a thin coat of oil on those seals. We're just going to push that in, lock it in, give it a little tug, make sure it's locked in. Do the same for the lower. Okay, these two lines are locked in. Now I want to go ahead and install our expansion tank hose here on the top of our radiator. We are replacing the hose clamp because the factory one is a one-time use and we had to break that off. So we're going to install our hose clamp. Now, of course, you can install this prior to this position here. However, using a pair of hose pliers, you should be able to go ahead and get this put into position. Go ahead and work the hose down on top of the radiator. We can use our ratchet to go ahead and snug that hose clamp down. Just going to install a lower radiator hose. I'm going to take the hose clamp off and spin this around. I'm going to install that facing up. It's going to be easy to access this if we have to later on. snug that down gently. While we're here, you want to go ahead and make sure that the drain petcock is snug. And ours is. Now if your lower shield had popped off, we're going to go ahead and get that into position now. You're going to install a little plastic button here, and we have the two outer ones. Let's go ahead and get those done, and then we'll move on. You're going to raise our lower shield up, and you want to get the two front tabs locked in. So go ahead and get that front tab locked in, and then we're going to go ahead and do the other side. Now that we have the front tabs in, we're going to take our bolt, and we want to put this up on the side of the frame here. And I'm just going to get this one started. I'm going to thread it in as far as I can by hand. But before I tighten that, I'm going to do the driver's side. Now we can go ahead and snug these down. And tighten down the driver's side. Now installing our cooling fan on the lower portion, we have these tabs, and they're going to interlock into the radiator tabs down below. Now there's one on the passenger side, one on the driver's side. So let's go ahead and lower our radiator down into this. I'm going to lower the passenger side down in. You need to guide those wires up and around. Lower the driver's side down. Our next step is take the supplied nuts for the radiator. We want to install those onto the upper portion of the radiator mounting tab for the fan to attach to. Now the nut itself is going to have a little tab on it that needs to face the engine, and the tab is going to be on the driver's side. On the passenger side, you're going to flip that nut so that tab is on the outside on the passenger side and install that. You can only insert that nut one way. It's going to come in on the outside and push inward. And then I'm going to use a pick and push that in, and you're going to hear it click in. There it is. Now we can go ahead and install the bolts securing the fan to the radiator. And once you have this lined up, go ahead and install the bolt. Get that started a few threads. And we're going to go ahead and install the passenger side before I tighten this down. All right, snug this down, and then snug down the other side. Now before we install our intercooler pipe, we're going to bring our harness over here, feed the hose down. Now you want to pay attention to the hose clamp. When we removed it, the clamp was on the left-hand side, the bolt side. It's easier for us to get to it on the other side here. So I just kind of flipped it. I'm going to slide this back onto the thicker part so it kind of doesn't spin on me. And feed this down inside. All right, now that we have our hose in place, let's go ahead and position our hose clamp, and we'll snug that down. Now with that hose clamp repositioned upward, an extension, I can get right to that hose clamp nice and easy. You want to go ahead and snug this down. Make sure that it's good and tight. Now we're going to go ahead and install our upper radiator hose on the passenger side. Now if you remember, we had to tilt out our radiator, or tilt the radiator in order for us to get our socket onto this here to loosen it. Well, with everything installed, we're going to simplify things, take the hose clamp off, flip it, put it on, and we're going to spin it just so that it's a little bit of an angle. We're going to go ahead and use our stubby ratchet and get to it at an angle down below. It's going to be a lot easier to gain access to that. That way there, if you ever have to replace this upper radiator hose at a later date, you don't have to disassemble everything else to get to it. And look at that, we have some hand room. Make sure it's good and tight. underneath the upper radiator hose, you're going to find this little tab. Go ahead and grab that wiring harness and pop that into that. And then bring the connector up. Line that up and push it on. You're going to hear it and feel it click. Install your expansion tank hose. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use tie straps here to anchor our wires in place because the other factory components are broken. On the back of the engine, we're going to install the tube here. Go ahead and position our clamp and we'll snug that down. You do want to make sure that's good and tight. And install the hardware for your charge tubes. And then snug them down. Feed the air intake tube down. Get that lined up into the air box. Push that in. Line this up into the ductwork underneath here. Snap that in. Now I want to go ahead and fill our cooling system. Open up the expansion tank cap. Go ahead and grab a clean funnel. Set that up. We're going to use the factory recommended coolant for the vehicle. Now let's go ahead and fill up the cooling system. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill up the system till it comes to the max line. Then we're going to remove our funnel, install our cap. I'm going to go ahead and start up the engine. We're going to let it run to operating temperature, a good 10 to 15 minutes or so. Let that thermostat open up and cycle that coolant through. It's great to go for a road test at that point. Come on back and check that level. Now, if that is not at the full mark there, you want to wait for the engine to cool down, open up the cap, and top off the system accordingly. Now that you're done with your road test and everything tested out okay, bring the vehicle down to your local shop and have the AC system recharged.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.